Imagine adding that little something special to make a birthday more enjoyable, or just bring dessert over someone's house or entertaining at your own home. Tiramisu, which in Italian means pick me up, is a wonderful dessert and not your average cake or dessert. DiMare Pastry Shop was voted the #1 bakery in Fairfield County in 2005 and has made many spectacular cakes throughout the years of their business. Although tiramisu is one of the more expensive cakes, we are going to show you how to make your very own DiMare style cake today in the kitchen of your own home. I am your host, Tim McGrath, part of the DiMare family, to explain the steps of this delicious process. Welcome to another episode of How Do I? Today we are going to learn how to make a traditional tiramisu cake. Here are the steps we are going to have to take in order to make perfection. Step 1. Make the sponge and the ladyfingers. Step 2. Mix the filling and make espresso. Step 3. Cut the sponge. Step 4. Soak the ladyfingers. Step 5. Fill the cake and then assemble the cake. Step 6, you will frost the cake and add the ladyfingers to the side. Step 7, eat it. Step 1, make the sponge and the ladyfingers. To mix the sponge, you need to add the dry ingredients first and then proceed making the mix by adding the liquid ingredients. Then you whip the egg whites and then fold them into the cake batter. Take that mixture and put it into a greased pan and then place it into the oven and bake at 360 degrees for 40 minutes. For the ladyfingers, mix the dry ingredients with the liquid ingredients and mix for 10 minutes. Pan them out by putting the mixture into a bag and making them into short strips. While the ladyfingers are in the pan, sprinkle baker's flour over the wet ingredients, place in the pan, and then in the oven at 375 degrees for 15 minutes. Step 2. Mix the filling and make the espresso. To get the tiramisu's delicious filling, you should mix the mascarpone cheese and heavy cream. Espresso is a strong Italian coffee which normally is served in a small shot. But because you need a large portion for one or more cakes, they need bucket-sized portions of espresso. Step 3. Cut the sponge. To cut the sponge, you will need a certain kind of knife, called a serrated knife, or what some people may know as a bread knife. Place the sponge on the table. Proceed by cutting the sponge into 3 equal pieces. Step 4. Soak the layers. Soak both the sponge and the ladyfingers in the espresso. Step 5. Add filling and assemble the cake. You will know how to take the mascarpone mixture, which is a large tube bag, added to the first layer sponge, and then sprinkle chocolate shavings on top of the cake. The second procedure is to soak the ladyfingers in coffee and place the ladyfingers on top of the mascarpone filling, and then proceed to do the same thing as you did in step 1. The top layer of the cake will be a sponge soaked in more espresso. Step 6. Frost the cake and add the ladyfingers. Frosting the cake may be the hardest part of this process. You need to take your time and have the right tools. You need to be frosting the cake with the filling you have been using inside of the cake. Mascarpone cheese mixed with a heavy cream, or sometimes certain people opt for the whipped cream topping. You need to have filling on top of the cake and then smooth it out with a large spatula. After the cake is fully frosted, the ladyfingers are added to the sides of the cake and finish out with a small whipped cream dots in between each of the ladyfingers, on the top of the cake and also around the bottom border. Step 7. Last and probably the best part of making this cake will be to eat it. Thank you for joining us for another episode of How Do I? I hope you enjoyed this delicious dessert you will be making for your family and or your friends. Have a great day, and we hope to see you next time on our episode. On our episode.